Alrighty, so I wanted to do a little bit of a review for the Epstein file situation. And it seems like there was a lot promised and there's been a lot of hype surrounding the information that we were going to potentially get regarding the Epstein files. And it doesn't seem like those obviously it does not seem like those promises have been kept or whatever we were hyping up to be the Epstein files, we haven't got that specifically. And it seems like that there is a rift forming within the Trump administration where you have people over here that or Trump's kind of just seemingly somewhat sidestepping, and people keep on asking about it and people keep on bringing it up and he doesn't really want to talk about it that much. And then you also have people within his administration that are really looking and hoping for the full set of files to be released. And so there's a real disconnect. There's a divide there within the Trump administration. And so for me, I want to research and review the whole timeline. I kind of want to see where the breakdown is happening. So that's primarily what we're going to do today. Maybe we'll do I saw Superman over this past weekend about a week ago, or I think it was on Monday, but I might do a review of that as well on the back end here. But wanted to do some review of the Epstein file situation, starting with just a timeline here. Let me There we go. This is an article from Forbes by Allison Durkee, and just goes through the timeline starting in February. I probably won't read all of this out loud, but you guys can kind of just read along with me. So the first thing to me, and this is probably just going to be some simple observations here. The biggest thing to me is that you have Bondi here, and the reason why this is such a big letdown, or I guess the reason it's such a big source of controversy, is because it seemed very simple. It seemed very simple. It seemed very simple. We've got the Epstein records. She's saying, where is it? Back in March 14th, says, quote, they're sitting on the desk right now. All of this just seems it's there, it's present, it's ready to be released. And so that never really that never really happens, at least to the extent that we were expecting. And so what happened in between that time? Like why are they being so open about saying it was sitting on my desk right now? We have the files ready to go, and then we seemingly get way less than what we were expecting. Also, the whole Trump and Musk feud is very odd. It's very odd for Elon Musk to come right out and say that Trump was in the Epstein files while they were arguing back and forth, and then walk it back, or then apologize, or whatever he did. That is very weird. And so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I don't know if it was just I don't know if it was just Elon trying to get under his skin. I don't know if it's Elon just trying to stir the pot or whatever it is, but that was I don't know. Uh, I would have to look into that separately. Okay, there seems to be a huge disconnect between what Bondi wants to do, and she is claiming that they have this information, they have these records. She's talked about it openly, and then we do not we see a lack of whatever she's claiming that they have. It doesn't seem that we've been given access to that, and there seems to be a disconnect between what Bondi is saying the government has, the Trump administration has, and then what the Trump administration actually wants to release, or even what Trump is is thinking that they have. Because he's kind of like, okay, there's other things going on. We kind of need to why are we focusing so much on this? Why do we keep on being redirected back to this specifically? But it's because of the things that she has said, because of the things that Bondi has said in the past. It's created this idea that hey, we've got these ready to go. They're ready to be released, and I don't know why specifically they're relying on her to kind of be the face of this, because you would kind of just expect Trump, if Trump really wanted everything to be released, you would kind of just expect him to bulldoze like he he typically would, just to bulldoze everybody and say, "This is what we're doing. We're releasing all the files. We're not going to play this game of going back and forth. This person says this, and this other person says that. We're just going to do it." And so, if I don't know why he is relying on her to really be the face of the whole situation, because there seems to be a disconnect between what she says they have and then what they're actually going to release or want to release. And so I'm curious because I've also been serious seeing some things on Twitter about different things going to the courts, and so I want to know specifically who is responsible, whose burden is it to release the files specifically? Who is the one that should be, whose decision is it ultimately? Because again, it seems to be a lot of Bondi, but you also wonder why doesn't Trump just make the decision himself? So whose decision is it actually at the end of the day? Also, I put put a link to this article that I was looking at here in the description for the video. So if you guys also want to check that out, you can. But let's Okay, this is from MSN by Morgan Music here. Okay, again, it just seems like that it just seems like here's what Bondi is promising, here's what she says they have, and then when it actually comes to releasing them, here is what they actually have. So, not exactly sure what that disconnect is there. Okay, we are now on New York Times. This is an article by Matthias, if that's correct. Matthias Schwartz. Okay, sorry, I think I had the wrong screen shared there. But I did put the New York Times article that I was just reading in the comment section there, so you guys can look that up yourselves and follow along. So basically, I from what I am understanding, here is the timeline slash situation. So Bondi comes out and makes these claims of, hey, we've got these files sitting on my desk right now. We have these files ready to be released. The the files are not released in the capacity to which in the capacity we were expecting. Trump then comes out and he kind of shoves it over to the side. I don't know if he's doing that to taper expectations. And now it's all of these things are being revealed by the grand jury. Trump, because of the pressure that's being put on him from all of the conservative voices that are around him, is now putting pressure for the judges or the judge to the release more of the files that they have, given all of files that they have in this particular case. So the way that it's what it seems right now is that we're kind of just waiting. This is a waiting game now. And again, I don't know if Trump is just trying to curb everybody's expectations. Maybe they did have some sort of maybe they did have the files, maybe they did have some sort of information, but it was not the kind of information that they were expecting. Maybe it wasn't as in depth as they were expecting, but it does look like that Trump is trying to put pressure on them so that they can release some of these files here. But it is it's disappointing and it's frustrating from the perspective of we we were assuming that there were these files out there that we were going to have access to after all this time. We're finally going to figure out who the enemy is. We're finally going to figure out who the bad guys are. We're finally going to figure out who's been involved in all of this, on all of these horrible things. And then we are told supposedly that they have some of this information, but then that information never comes. We see Trump trying to sidestep the situation a little bit, and now we're just kind of waiting on the courts. I, where I'm confused, what I'm confused about is the lack of simplicity. It seems like that there was a moment where the simplest outcome was going to be that they release all the files to the public. We see all the information that we have been hoping to see. We finally get a level of transparency that we have not been able to get so far. That doesn't happen. Now it's in the hands of a judge. Now it's in the hands of a grand jury. And now we're just playing a waiting game. Now we're just playing a waiting game for some of these files to be released. And so I don't honestly, I don't know ultimately what the outcome is going to be. Again, maybe it is one of those things where they got a hold of some information and they thought it was going to be much more of a blockbuster than it actually was. And so now we're just kind of stuck out of the loop, I guess, as the American people. But I don't even understand why, and this can be a criticism of Trump. This can be a criticism of just Bondi individually or both of them together. I don't understand why Trump would be on board with her making those initial statements if the documents were not up to par or were not what were expecting. Why would she let her come out and say, "Yeah, there it's like it's all the information is at our fingertips and it's basically just sitting there waiting for us to talk about." And then not only do we not get to see all of that information, we are we are now playing a waiting game when it was initially the information was given to us as if it was all right there. We're just going to release it. I don't understand all of this roundabout. I don't know why they this rope a dope. I don't understand why they would make all of these claims if they couldn't just release the files. And then I don't understand why they would make all of these claims and have all of this stuff hyped up when it really wasn't anything special to begin with. So I think right now it's kind of just a waiting game. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they do end up releasing more information, and I hope that the information that the American people were expecting is ultimately what we get. And if they have access to that kind of information, I hope that is what we ultimately get. The other article that I was reading earlier that I forgot to switch over to. So I'm going to put this link in the chat as well. So anybody can follow along with that if they want to. But overall, it's just really discouraging. It's really discouraging. This seems to be the whole Epstein client list, the whole Epstein files situation. That seems to be like that was the big blockbuster, right? That was the big thing. It's like, yes, finally we're going to figure out what's going on. Finally, we're going to figure out who's been involved in this this outspoken but yet secret society like pedophile ring that people have been claiming is controlling Hollywood and the elites for all of these years. It's like, okay, finally we're going to get some answers. And not only do we not really get any answers, there just seems to be a whole lot of fumbling about, a whole lot of this person says this, that person says that. We don't actually get the information that seems like we were promised. And now it's just a big roundabout thing. And it's just unfortunate and kind of depressing actually. But hopefully I do believe like this is the kind of thing that that Trump would be remembered for if he actually just like, oh, he's the one that broke the ice on all of this. He is the one that he is the one that finally gave us the answers that we have been wanting. And I don't know actually what is going on as far as if they have information and they're withholding the information. There's a number of different scenarios that it could be. Um, but it just leaves the people in a bad place. And I was actually I heard Andrew Tate was talking about this, and he was and there seems to be this conspiracy theory that Trump there is a client list. There is a list of information regarding all of these people that did these horrible things. And yet Trump is withholding that, not necessarily because he himself is on it, but because you have to think about if all of these things are true, if all of these things are true about the Epstein client list and the number of people, the number of elites, the number of politicians and people in Hollywood, powerful people that are on the list, if all of that is true, think about how much it's going to destabilize our government, how much it's going to destabilize our country in terms of just like financially, because that if all of the people that are wrapped if all the people that have the most money, if all these people that have the most money, they're all wrapped up in this pedophile ring, how is that going to impact America? And so at that point, what he was saying at that point is that Trump has to make a moral decision. Do I release the files and then undermine some of the stability of the country and the government, or do I keep it quiet so that way everything just just keeps on functioning the way it's functioning. And I don't know if that's true. The reason I bring that up is because we have not gotten what we thought was promised to us, because we have not gotten the information that we've been expecting this whole time, it leaves the door open for just a wild, just onslaught, nonstop conspiracy theories all over the place. And so there's a number that, and until we get the full transparency, which we feel like that we have been promised this whole time, it's just going to lead to a lot of confusion because now it's just speculation. Why won't Trump just release them? Or why do we have to wait? Or why were they making all these claims? It's not good. It's not a good look for the Trump administration. It's not a good look for the government. And it just leaves the people in a really bad spot. And if that were the case, that Trump was purposely keeping these documents under wraps to a certain extent to help protect the stability of the government and then all of the economic function of the country because of all the people, all the powerful people that would get in trouble, he should release them anyway. Okay, whatever kind of fallout, whatever kind of issues that releasing the files and giving us the names would cause, the moral thing to do would be to release the files and then we'll just deal with it. We'll deal with it because I would rather deal with all of the fallout and deal with all the problems and then know the truth. And then know who the problem causers are. Who the I want to This idea that we can function as a country and allow a massive evil like this to continue. It's like, well, it's better for us not knowing. It's like, no, I kind of disagree. I disagree. It's better that we know who the enemy is. It's better that we know who the evil people are, so we can hopefully root them out to a certain extent. And and then whatever, if we have to suffer a little bit, if we have to struggle a little bit, if we have to live with uncertainty a little bit, then that's fine. But I think that if that were the case, then the file should just be released anyway. But anyway, um, unfortunate that we are still kind of living in the dark at this point. But like I said, it's kind of depressing. So let's talk about something that's a little bit more uplifting, which is the Superman movie. I got to go see that over this past week, and before I get into the specifics of the movie, the the debate ends up being, and you're going to see this plastered all over social media. The question is, which movie is better, Superman 2025? And I'll answer this question first before I get to the specifics of the movie itself. Which movie is better, Superman 2025 or Man of Steel from Zack Snyder? And in my mind, the way I think about comic book movies, I think about them on two different levels. Which one is a better comic book movie and which one is a better film overall? And the examples that I would give on this is that let's look at the original Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire. Those movies are disconnected from pretty much everything else going on in the Marvel universe. And a lot of that has to do with the rights that Sony had at the time. It's like, okay, you can make Spider-Man movies specifically with Spider-Man villains and Spider-Man characters. You can't use, it's not just a free for all. You can't just use all of the Marvel characters that you want. And so the movie is very closed. It's not about space. It's not about aliens. It's not about the Avengers or anything like that. It's just about Spider-Man and Spider-Man's life and Spider-Man characters. And those movies are they have some flaws, but they also have a lot of redeeming qualities. And it's basically just Spider-Man. Like, here's New York, normal New York, the way it normally functions, but then you just have Spider-Man. And that's like the only supernatural thing. It's like the only superhero thing that we have going on in the world is normal New York and then Spider-Man in New York. And so it's not a huge comic book spectacle. It's not littered at every turn with a variety of comic book references. I mean, there might be some smaller references in there, but they can't just go um, and put whatever they want in there because of the rights that they had at the time. But I would say specifically Spider-Man 2 like I said, there's problems with each one of those movies to an extent, and there's also some redeeming qualities. But Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire is one of the better superhero movies ever made, in my opinion. And especially what it meant at the time when you look at the visual effects, when you look at like, hey, this was a time before superhero movies were traditionally accepted. Superhero movies usually, up until that point, kind of fell on their face a little bit. And even though there are some problems with the original Sam Raimi trilogy and the old X-Men movies, they kind of built the foundation of what we experience now in the MCU. And I do believe that Kevin Feige was involved in the making of those original Spider-Man movies. And so I think he took some of the issues that he saw with those movies back then and applied them and tried to avoid those same mistakes when he was creating the MCU. But anyway, Spider-Man 2 is one of the better superhero movies that I have seen. But and I would say that it's better than probably any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies individually. And I know that No Way Home is cool because it brings back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. But as a standalone movie, I think Spider-Man 2 is probably better than any of the individual Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. So it's a better overall film. However, it is not a better comic book film because Tom Holland Spider-Man has the advantage of, hey, you get all the technology. Hey, you get to have a relationship with Iron Man and the Avengers, and you've been to space, and you're part of this larger MCU. You get all of the suits, you get the web shooters, you get all the tech, you get all of these different things that kind of help build a portfolio of comic book references. And so his movies are just full. It's like neon and comic booky, and there's all of this technology, and there's aliens, and there's weird villains, villains, all of these different things. And so Spider-Man 2 from Sam Raimi is a better overall film than Homecoming, No Way Home, um, what's the second? Far From Home. It's a better overall film, just the way that it's structured. It's not a better comic book film. And another example I would give of this is the Dark Knight trilogy. The Dark Knight trilogy is one of the best trilogies ever made. The Dark Knight specifically is probably the best superhero movie ever made and one of the best movies of all time. But that is a very grounded take of the Batman character. It's basically like, okay, here's New York slash Chicago, and Batman exists in that city. He exists in that world. And there aren't really any large scale reveals about him being connected to a large universe. It's basically just Batman, Batman villains, Batman characters, Gotham City. That's it. And you don't have aliens falling from the sky, and you don't have Superman, and you don't have the Justice League, and you don't have all of these. I guess Bane is super powered to a certain extent, but you don't have metahumans. You don't have super powered individuals just running around all over the place like you do in the comics. And he doesn't cross paths with other superheroes like he does in the comics. And so the Dark Knight, when you consider acting, storytelling, plot, drama, it's one of the best thrillers ever. It is a better film than something like Batman v Superman. But Batman v Superman is a better comic book movie. And the Batman in Batman v Superman is a better comic book Batman. Not that Ben Affleck is better than Christian Bale, not that um, not that his movie is better, not the movies he's in is better, but in terms of comic book ness, how comic booky is the movie, Batman v Superman is a better comic book movie. And you realize when you watch The Dark Knight that this is more so about the values that are represented by Batman. He is a symbol. This is symbolic Batman. This is Batman that everybody can look up to. This is Batman that leads the city against all of these different threats, right? He represents a set of values, and that's kind of the foundation of it. The Batman v Superman Batman is closer to comic book Batman because if you were to put Christian Bale's Batman in a room with like 20 guys, he probably gets killed. Okay. This is grounded. You can only fight so well against 20 guys. He's probably not walking out of that room with 20 guys armed. You throw Ben Affleck's Batman in the warehouse, right? The warehouse fight scene. There's like 15, 20 guys who all have weapons. He disarms them and takes them down in a brutal fashion. Okay. That's comic book Batman. And he's driving around in this crazy looking Batmobile, shooting people and blowing up cars. It's like, okay, this is comic book Batman. He's fighting Superman. He's fighting with Wonder Woman and Superman. He's fighting against Doomsday and Lex Luthor's there. It's it's a it's a more comic booky film. It's a better comic book film. If you're somebody that's just into references and characters and in scale and all of these different things, it's a better movie. It's a better comic book movie, but it's not better in quality. It's not a better quality film than The Dark Knight. And I think that's kind of the distinction that I make between Superman 2025 and then Man of Steel. And to me, ultimately, Man of Steel is better. It is a better film than Superman 2025, but Superman 2025 is a better comic book film. And the Superman 2025 is probably closer to the ideal version of comic book Superman that we all want to see and the version that we all enjoy. Man of Steel, it's darker, it's grittier, it's tougher, it's not as uplifting as Superman 2025. But when I go back and I watch Man of Steel, there's a couple things that stick out to me. First of all, Henry Cavill is great. Second of all, the brutality and the fighting in it is amazing. It's better than the fighting in Superman 2025. Superman 25 it looks a little janky and it's not particularly violent. Man of Steel is very violent. The Superman 2025 it's like, yeah, I'll fly out of the way and I'll save the squirrel. And then Superman or Man of Steel in 2013 it's like, yeah, I'm going to throw you. You threaten my mom. I'm going to throw you into an oncoming train. And then I'm going to throw you into a gas station. It's going to explode. That's or I'm going to drag you by the face across the concrete pavement. It's just different, and it's okay that they're different. But I'm just saying, I prefer Man of Steel overall. I prefer the brutality of it. I prefer the physicality of it more so than Superman 2025. So I probably overall give Man of Steel like an 8 and Superman 2025 a 7. And it's two different takes of the same character. It's two sides of the same coin. It's two different interpretations of a character that we all know and love. If you come to me and you say, I really like Superman 2025, I like it better than Man of Steel, I would say I disagree, but I understand why. And I don't disagree that there are redeeming qualities about the film specifically. But me, I just prefer the way that the darker, grittier movie was produced. I think I think works a lot for me in terms of what I'm looking for in a Superman movie. And I will also say that for whatever reason, even though the movie is 12 years old, Man of Steel looks better. It looks better in terms of visual effects than Superman 2025. And I don't know if it's because of James Gunn's dedication to neon and bright colors and all of these other things like similar to Guardians of the Galaxy, but it looks better, which is a crazy compliment to give to a movie that's 12 years older. So I would take Man of Steel overall more than Superman 2025. But for Superman 2025 specifically, here are the things that I like. Okay. Um, it's David Cornsweet, right? David Cornsweet. Let me see. Yes, David Cornsweet is his name. David Cornsweet as Superman is really good. And I think in terms of looks, he probably looks more like an ideal version of comic book Superman because you have to think with Henry Cavill. I love Henry Cavill. I think he's got a lot of range as an actor. I think he's a very good actor and he can definitely pull off a Superman. But at the end of the day, Henry Cavill's like 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that. He's not he's jacked and he's huge, but he's not very tall. David Cornsweet is in really good shape, and he's also like 6'4". So you have this guy. It is kind of funny. They play off the Superman is Clark Kent and Clark Kent is Superman. They play off that dynamic really well because here you have this lumbering 6'4" guy that's just taller and bigger and in better shape than everybody, but nobody would ever think for 2 seconds that he's Superman. And so I think that dynamic works really well. I'm glad that they pretty much got rid of the origin story. I'm glad that him and Lois already have an established relationship. I think that's really good. I think that their dynamic is really good. I'm glad they actually give Jimmy Olsen an actual role, which it's kind of just played off for laughs. It's like every woman is in love with Jimmy Olsen for some weird reason. I don't really know why, but um, the Lois Lane in this story is probably better. It's probably better than the Lois Lanes that we have seen before. I am a huge Amy Adams fan, but in terms of what Lois Lane is supposed to be in Superman for Superman, I think that this one probably works the best. And so David Cornsweet, I think he has the right balance of he can bring the physicality, like he can bring the presence, right? There's a presence with Superman. I think he has that ability as an actor to bring the presence, but also bring the softer side. Like also bring genuine emotional concern for humanity. I think it's good that they actually show it bothers Superman a lot. Bothers him a lot when people die. Bothers him a lot when people suffer. And he wants to stop as much suffering as he can. And sometimes that leads him into trouble. Sometimes that his care for humanity actually leads him to make maybe more emotionally driven decisions, but all of those dynamics I think kind of work, and you get to see him in a position where it's like, should I do this, should I do that, or I should have done this or should have done that, and it really bothers him the way that people react to it. It bothers him when he makes a mistake. It bothers him when people get hurt, and I think that's good. And I will say, from an uplifting, Superman is supposed to be an uplifting character, and you contrast his character against something like Batman 2022. And even though those two movies aren't in the same universe yet, I don't necessarily think that they're going to connect the two, but you set the tone, right? Batman, Gotham, it's drudgery, it's a sewer, it's a gutter. Life there sucks, life is horrible. And Batman, while he is a source of good, he kind of embodies that part of Gotham. It's not that he becomes Gotham necessarily, it's that we live in the pit, basically. We live in this dreary, nasty place. And that's kind of who Batman is. He's lurking in the shadows, beating people up, scaring people to death. And so he takes on the persona of the city. Well, it's kind of reversed with Superman, especially in this movie, where the city takes on the persona of Superman. So if Superman's there, everything around him becomes more positive. Everything around him becomes better, whether it's people's attitudes, people's optimism, hope, all of these different things. He uplifts everybody. He uplifts people. He moves them out of the way of danger, but he also uplifts them emotionally. He also uplifts them in terms of attitude. And I think that even though I think Man of Steel is better overall, that does a better job. James Gunn does a better job of painting Superman as the hopeful character that we see in Superman 2025, the character that Superman should be ultimately in the ideal comic book version of himself. And so I really like that part of it. I like some of the side characters. Guy Gardner, when like in the comics and then in shows like Batman Brave and the Bold, is one of my favorite comic book characters because he cracks me up so much. Honestly, I mean Hawk Girl is there, but she's just kind of doing whatever. The funniest character in the movie is probably Mr. Terrific because he seems to be the only one that knows truly what's going on, and he's trying to fix all these problems and everybody around him is just acting stupid. And you can tell that he's just over it, man. He's over it. He's done. He's tired of dealing with people's stupidity, and everybody just needs to get out of his way. And so that's pretty funny. What I don't like about the movie is first of all, I thought that there was a moment in the movie where I actually thought that they were going to do the same thing they did in Spider-Man Homecoming. So in Spider-Man Homecoming, if you remember, this is okay. Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's still a teenager, he's still a kid. How violent do we really want to make this? In Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man hardly ever throws like real punches. He's not really trying to do any kind of damage to anybody. He's not really even trying to hurt anybody. He's just like, yeah, I'll just web him up and I'll swing around and I'll just pull you out of the way or push you or kick you or something. He's not like trying to beat people to a pulp like he is in Spider-Man No Way Home, where he goes toe to toe with the Green Goblin. And I actually thought halfway through Superman 2025 that that's what they were doing, because he kind of just piddles around and saves people. And he's like, I don't want to hurt this creature. I don't want to do this. I want to do that. But and I'm like, are they gonna have him go this whole movie and not, like, beat somebody into the ground? Because that's what Superman ultimately does in a lot of cases. But they did. They turned it around. He actually does have a couple fights. He does beat people up. He does, beat up Lex Luthor's army and his super soldiers, whatever. And so all that is fine. There was also another moment in the movie where, like I was talking about earlier, there are good films and then there are comic book movies. And I also would say that not every comic book film is a kids movie, even though they definitely can be. Even though it's easy to take your kids to a comic book movie, it's like, oh, it's Superman, oh, it's Captain America, oh, it's Iron Man. And so a lot of the Marvel properties are somewhat cotton candy to a certain extent, and they're not like dark and sinister and all of these different things. But you can make a good superhero movie and it also not be a kids movie. Dark Knight specifically, but the Dark Knight trilogy in general, but Dark Knight specifically is not a kids movie. The themes that it deals with, the violence in it, the kind of um, the destruction that you see, like the destruction of people and all of these darker themes going on, that's not really a kids movie, but it is a superhero movie. And there was a point in Superman 2025. I'm sitting there, I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, this is definitely closer to something like Guardians of the Galaxy than Man of Steel, because I mean it's James Gunn, and so you have neon colors, and there are some things I'm willing to just deal with in terms of suspending the disbelief. But once they got into the, what is it, the negative zone, the pocket dimension, and Lex Luthor's like, yes, and over here we have an army of mind controlled monkeys who are doing nothing but posting hate about Superman on Twitter. I'm like, okay, okay, I understand that this is a James Gunn movie and he likes the flair and he likes to pack his movies full of comic book references. And mind controlled monkeys on computers is definitely something that you would see in the comics. But that is the moment where I said to myself, okay, this is not a superhero film. This is now a film for children. This is a kids movie. And that's fine. That's fine if you want it to be a kids movie. That's fine if that was the ultimate goal. It's fine. Yeah, I'm fine. I think it's good that people can take their kids to see a Superman movie. All those different things are fine. But that is the distinction. Man of Steel is a superhero film. It is not necessarily a kids film. Superman 2025 is a comic book film. It's a superhero film. It is also a kids film. Okay, and I can suspend the disbelief to a certain extent, but you talk about mind controlled monkeys. I'm just like, okay, that's the kind of movie it is. That's fine. If that's what you like, that's also fine. But that's where I kind of drew the line. Nicholas Holt as Lex Luthor is good. Definitely better than Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. I think, and someday I will do a ranking of all of Zack Snyder's movies, and I will go more in depth about this. But I do think that buried in Batman v Superman is a good version of Lex Luthor. And it's not necessarily Jesse Eisenberg's fault. I think it's more so a problem. His characterization of Lex Luthor is more so a problem of the script and the writing of the character as opposed to his individual performance, because I do think that Jesse Eisenberg is a good actor and somewhere in there is a good Lex Luthor. But um, Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is definitely better. But here's the problem. And this is the same mistake that they make in Batman v Superman. And that is they do not get Lex Luthor correct. And it's almost as if, in order to make Superman appear truly good, they have to make Lex Luthor pure evil on at every single turn. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think that's the best version of Lex Luthor. The best version of Lex Luthor is not somebody who is overtly evil, is somebody who is extremely jealous of Superman, yes, but also very intelligent, and he's more so of an anti-hero. He's not anti-humanity, he's not anti-world, he's actually pro-world and doesn't believe that we should be our safety should be left up to the decisions of all powerful beings who came from a different planet. And you can see that that kind of mindset is not entirely flawed. But the problem is that they continuously just make him overtly evil in every way, and they turn him into a maniac. And so that undermines his credibility of a villain. You can't just make every villain evil. The best villains are ones that are somewhat conflicted and have a point to a certain extent. And so the problem, and they do this in Batman v Superman, the real Lex Luthor, a comic book accurate Lex Luthor, who again is extremely smart, he would not create a gigantic doomsday monster to kill Superman and then also he has no failsafe for. He has no backup plan for. What is he gonna, kill Superman and just gonna let this gigantic monster run across the entire world until all the cities are destroyed? Like, I don't understand that kind of logic. That doesn't make any sense. That is not a decision that a smart, intelligent person would make. And the same is true in spoilers. I should have said that at the beginning. Spoilers all around. But the real Lex Luthor, a comic book accurate Lex Luthor, he would not purposefully split Metropolis in half in order to get Superman's attention. He would not purposefully murder thousands of people just to get Superman's attention out in the open like that. Not, like that's the thing. Lex Luthor might is definitely criminal. He's definitely unethical, but first of all, he would not make dumb decisions. Second of all, he would not get caught. That's the whole point of Lex Luthor is that he continuously does bad things and he continuously hurts people and he continuously chooses to do what's wrong, but he always gets away with it because he's super smart. That's the point. It would have made far more sense. I was completely ready to accept emotionally that Lex Luthor is going to get away at the end. But no, he gets caught and he gets outed and he gets arrested. And so now when they bring him back in any other film, he's already been thoroughly discredited. There's no way that he can set himself up as this rich and powerful character whom everybody looks up to as an alternative to Superman. No, he's already been discredited, guys. He's already the villain. We already know he's evil. There is no questioning him anymore. He's already been sent to jail. If he ever gets out of jail, everybody knows immediately he's a villain. The whole point is that he keeps on doing villainous things and getting away with it. He should have gotten away with it so they can bring him back because he's a good character. That's what they get wrong about Lex Luthor. And so even though his portrayal is better, Nicholas Holt's portrayal is better, the character, the development of the character and who the character is supposed to be is not entirely correct. So that's one problem that I have. The Superman clone, it's just kind of like whatever. I didn't actually think it was really going to be Henry Cavill. I was kind of hoping it would be, but I didn't really think it was going to be. I guess that's kind of what you have to do. I just get frustrated. I get frustrated because there's so many other different directions that you could have gone in terms of the comics. There's so many other different characters you could have introduced as opposed to just a clone of Superman. It's like I feel like that's a reveal that should be saved for later. I feel like that's something that's later on down the line. You could have had him be a number of other villains. It could have been Metallo, could have been the Parasite, it could have been any of these other um, super powerful characters from Superman comics that they put in as a surprise henchman for Lex Luthor, and that would have been a much better reveal. Would have been a much better reveal. The whole clone thing, I'm just kind of over. I'm just kind of over it. It's a trope. It's something that we've seen in other pieces of media, and I just don't. It's not interesting to me. I don't care about that. Um, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not what I wanted to see, but it's fine. What else is there? What else can I think of? Superman clone. Yeah, I mean, if they could just get the villains right, that's really the biggest thing. Whether it's Batman v Superman or Superman 2025, if they can just get the villains right, I think they would be way better off. I think that the movies would just be a lot better. But because they consistently choose to undermine their own villains and do not do the villains, um, do not give them the proper justice, so to speak, I think that they're missing out. I mean, if the villains were a little bit were written a little bit better, then it would have lifted the movie like from here to like here. But they consistently get it wrong. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. But overall, I enjoyed it. I think that it's good. I think it's definitely a fun movie. Again, going back to the uplifting part, the score is really good. And there is a mix of the old Superman march, the traditional Superman march, and then it also has its own theme, like there's music that they're not just completely drawing from another film, another Superman film, but if you listen to it, it actually kind of sounds like, the Man of Steel theme a little bit. They twisted it up. I don't know if it's that's just meant to be a nod to Man of Steel, but the theme kinda sounds like that, but it's not exactly like it, so it's not just copy paste. So the theme's good. The uplifting part of Super that's probably the best part of the film, is that Superman is an uplifting character, right? You see there's a lot of shots of Superman in the sunshine, like he brings the light with him, he brings the positivity with him, he brings the hope with him. All of that is great. All of that is great. David Gordon Sweat is really good. And so everything that kind of personifies Superman and the way that he's portrayed as a character, I think works really well. It's mostly just the villains, and it's mostly like the plot points that don't work for me. So so again, Man of Steel probably an 8. Um, Superman 2025 is probably a 7. And I probably need to go back and watch Man of Steel again. And like I said earlier, I'll probably do a ranking of all Zack Snyder's Superman or Zack Snyder's superhero movies eventually, but we'll see.